back with another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, where we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture each and every week, twice a week, wherever you get your podcast, plus also as well, Game Source and Inside Sports Fantasy Football. The guys from the Lakers Fast Break are going to hopefully be on with me tonight at 8:30, although for Magic Man, that's going to be a tall order indeed. So go ahead and join us either later tonight on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel for Inside Sports Fantasy Football, or go ahead and check us out each and every time wherever you get your audio podcast. We'll be talking about Tua, of course, the rise of Miami, and who is the best rookie so far in the NFL. I have a surprise I may want to lay on some people. So go ahead and check that out. Plus, we set your lineup straight for week 4 in the NFL. So go ahead and check that out indeed. Plus, also as well, LakersBall.com. You know, Joe Soro is hanging around as Ox1947 as the trade winds blew into LakersBall.com. And they blew a really hard gust of Damian Lillard wins right there for you. So go ahead and check out what he has to say over there. Plus also as well, Simblades with a Y.com. Of course, our good friends, Laker Tom, you know, he's trying to counter the big trade with a trade of his own. Go ahead and find out what he has to say at Lakerholics.com. Plus our good friend Jamie Sweet, who is trying to get back on the show. It's just our scheduling doesn't meet always, but he looks to go ahead at the very least host this coming weekend's Lakerholics show. So go ahead and find out what he has to say on his 5 things articles as well, along with Laker Tom at Lakerholics.com. Our good friends, Empire Jeff TV, and also as well, John McCallion. They have great YouTube channels. Please support it today. You might even see Joe Soro in the chat on Empire Jeff TV. So go ahead and check it out today. And of course, on YouTube. Plus, speaking of YouTube, want to go ahead and before I give the obligatory, please subscribe to us. I want to give a big shout out to Dan, the Lakers fan. I heard he was recently undergoing some issues with YouTube, and just want to say sorry, because I know that this is a great part of what you do. It's a great part of what you do as far as the living is concerned. So I'm hoping that things will rectify itself, and our thoughts from the Lakers Fast Break are with you, Dan, the Lakers fan. I hope everything gets straightened out for you in due time. Quicker, sooner rather than later. Plus also, if you can, speaking of YouTube, please subscribe today to get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air. Our goal is to get the kind of numbers Dan, the Lakers fan, is getting, so hopefully you will help make that happen by go ahead and clicking on the little Joe. See, there's the big Joe right there, but also as well the little Joe next to, you know, the one that's scaring, the one that's really scaring Magic Man, Sean Grice with the beady eyes. Go ahead and click on it today, get the latest notifications on when we go live with the latest Lakers Fast Break podcast. Woo! Big day. I know my phone started blowing up from all ends, left and right. Sean, Joe, Nick, Jamie, my cousins, my friends, my in-laws, all over talking about the great trade that was done today. Finally, we have a big trade to talk about, and it's Damian Lillard. He is the first to be on the move to Miami. Oh, sorry, Miami. You didn't get Damian Lillard. Too bad. He's not heading to the nightclubs and the beaches over there. He's actually heading to the nice, cold, wintry weather of Milwaukee in a trade, 3-team trade today, including Milwaukee, Portland, and surprisingly, Phoenix. I'll give you the particulars right now. As per ESPN, Adrian Wojnarowski, along with Shams Charania, broke the news. Portland Trailblazers are trading Damian Lillard today. As far as that, he's going to Milwaukee. In exchange, Portland receives Drew Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, Toumani Camara, Milwaukee's 2029 unprotected first-round draft pick, and don't sleep on that one. Unprotected Milwaukee swap rights in 28 and 30. Don't swap out on those two. Those are really interesting trade decisions there. Very delectable, to say the least. The Suns will receive Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson. So there you go, and there you have it in detail. Interesting 3-team trade, and I did promise our great chat room, especially with Douglas, give you a big shout out there, Douglas Gallagher. He asked, we're going to go ahead and line it up as far as on the Sun side. We'll cover what the Suns got and if that was enough to go ahead and distance himself for the Lakers. We'll talk about that on the show today as well. But first up, first man here, good man indeed. He is Ox1947 at LakersBall.com. It is Joe Soro. And Joe, great to have you here. Simblades, Simblades with a Y.com. You actually wanted to go ahead and get me on the phone real quick to get, do that earlier today. Unfortunately, I was on the road, so I apologize for that. They always time these things when I'm not here in the office. Your thoughts, though, initially when you saw the trade, does this put Milwaukee, as some are calling now, of course, on ESPN for shock value, as the favorite to win the NBA title?
This is one of those things where Milwaukee had to do something, right? Not win championships per se, but there was rumblings happening with Giannis. So if anything, I think this is a move that tells Giannis, hey, we're serious about winning. And they'd rather go in the battle with, and I'm trying to understand why this team won't be good. I think the rumblings I've heard was, well, now they don't have any defense because Dame Lillard doesn't play any defense. I'm like, what do you need defense for when you have a guy that can shoot from anywhere on the court and drop 30 on you?
Just tell them to funnel them to drive to the big trees.
And how many more stars you need on this team, or how many more effective players? You're going to have the runner-up and the defensive player of the year at center. You have Bobby Portis, who's shown that, he can be a money player in big games. And then you have Dame Lillard now, who's going to be motivated. And then you still have Giannis. I think this team, should it stay healthy, should get out of the East at this point. Because you guys know how I feel about the East. The East is, by the way, Middleton's still on that team. How do you argue against this? Seriously, like I didn't even get to Middleton at that point, right? So Milwaukee right now on paper looks phenomenal. They stay healthy, they're coming out of the East at this point. I have no doubt, unless Porzingis goes into MVP mode. Maybe they might have a shot there. But you're looking at Milwaukee and likely Boston now battling in the East. And I'm curious to see where Drew Holiday ends up, because it's already clear that he is not staying in Phoenix. Does Miami go after him? Would that work? Would it be for someone like Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson? I don't know. That's something to look after at this point as well. I know that a lot of Laker fans on Lakers Ball were, can we get Drew Holiday here? Could you imagine having him and Gabe Vincent playing the perimeter defense, a la KCP, Alex Caruso of 2020? I wouldn't be upset, but I don't really feel it either. I feel like Drew Holiday might be running up on the end of his usefulness in terms of what he used to be. Maybe he might have one more year in him, but we're going to find out here shortly where he ends up, because I believe that's going to be the next mystery on where he ends up.
Once again, it is the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate you joining us here today. It is the big trade for Damian Lillard as he heads over to Milwaukee with DeAndre Ayton headed to Portland.
Sorry, I meant Portland, not Phoenix, guys. Sorry. Yes, I meant Portland.
Yes. So, yes. The thing we'll talk about here in a second is Phoenix here in a second. But DeAndre Ayton and Drew Holiday and also a slew of draft picks, either first rounds or first round swaps that are going to Portland. Phoenix is the one that I'm peculiar as far as why they devalued DeAndre Ayton so much to go ahead and include him in this trade for what they got, because I know that Douglas Gallagher wanted to look at it from that end. And here today to discuss that end, along with what else he wants to talk about. Good man indeed. It is the madman from Toronto. He did get out of Toronto traffic to go ahead and talk about the Damian Lillard trade. It is the Magic Man, Sean Grice. Sean, you're the man. You're also going to be here later tonight talking to Brendan Nunez on the Kings. We bow down to you as far as the great work that you're doing. And you might even be on later on Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Triple duty again for you, sir. But I was listening to the Suns Jam Session podcast. trying to spike this up for the Suns a little bit, but I don't know, my friend. When you're talking about it and looking at it, and seeing and evaluating what's going on with this trade for the Suns, I don't know, my friend. DeAndre Ayton for use of Nurkic and some other stuff is just not what I see a good value in return for the Suns.
No, not at all.
I love how you do that. No.
Not at all, Gerald. This is like the leftovers after the Oktoberfest. This
Well,
is
let me ask you
really,
this. Is this how devalued DeAndre Ayton is?
oh, for sure. I unfortunately he's played himself into this predicament. He's wishy washy, Gerald. Uh, there are times when he can be a very dominant force at the rim defensively. And we saw during 2021 that put in certain pick and roll sets. He's very effective and very efficient. However, he's also wishy washy with his motor. Now, there were always questions about his motor, Gerald. There were never questions about his athleticism as a big man. So this has been ongoing for about 3 years now, Gerald. There's been rumors about Aiton and the Suns really not seeing eye to eye for about 3 years, right? And we saw it kind of really check, really converge in that 2021 season when DeAndre Ayton still didn't have an extension, right? And then they went to the finals. He played exceptionally well. They had no choice but to give him the money. Now he's basically told everybody, "I'm not worth that money right now," because he's not. Defensively, he really let the Suns down in that series. I mean, Jokic ate him for breakfast, and the Suns couldn't win the minutes with Jokic off the floor, Gerald. That's how bereft of depth they were, basically. They were kind of relying on Jock Landale to be a force on them in their front court because Aiton wasn't uh, cutting the mustard as far as effort is concerned. And now he goes to a Portland team that's rebuilding, and who knows what's going to happen. His career may bloom again, Gerald, or it may just fall right to the pavement. We're not sure yet. He's
Uh,
got the skills to be a very effective big man. It's just his motor, Gerald. That's what's holding him back.
and I know that both are good rebounders, Sean. Obviously, DeAndre Ayton is younger. He's a little bit better at the rim. I know that Nurkic, a little bit better passer for the interior, also as well.
What
He sets
what
better
really
screens. He sets better screens, which would help that offense flow better. I get that. But he's also on a, I thought, oh, maybe he must be on expiring. I forgot he's not on expiring. He still's got 3 years plus left on his contract. So it's not like they're saving a ton of money. It's not like they're saving a ton of years on this, as far as the player is concerned. You also have a much older and a very often injured Yusuf Nurkic that you're getting in return, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely, Gerald. Everything you said was pinpoint. Um, and unfortunately, what what Nurkic ultimately suffers from is that compound fracture back in 2019, Gerald. That really changed his career. Up until that point, he had been a very, very, very good offensive player. And he was a competent defender as well because back then, when Terry Stotts was coaching the Blazers, they both had Dame and CJ McCollum. So they required a lot of hedge defense, and they relied on Nurkic to be that big man to hedge. And he was very good at it, Gerald. And then he was competent at it. But then that fracture happened, and he became a serious liability defensively. We saw Portland's numbers as a defense, Gerald, the past few years: 25th, 28th, 30th. Um, it was circling the drain, that defense. And, unfortunately, He's a big part of that. I don't really think he helps Pheonix out that much other than being a live body. Uh, his efficiency has dropped a bit. You're right, Gerald. That's not the same. Still a good rebounder, but I think this is like a wash, basically, for Pheonix. They've added a little bit more depth, but who knows if that's really going to help them in the end.
Once again, it is the Lakers Fast Break. It is, of course, Magic Man Sean Grice and Joe Soro as well. We're talking the Damian Lillard trade. As far as the trade, he's going on the way to Milwaukee, and obviously he's going to go ahead and enjoy his time there with Giannis Antetokounmpo. And Joe, I agree with you. This trade was all about Giannis Antetokounmpo more than it is Damian Lillard, in the fact that, they really needed to go and show him in Milwaukee that they are trying to build a team that will allow him to stay in Milwaukee, or will convince him to stay in Milwaukee for many years to come. And that seems to be the lingering question, if this will exactly do it. I think that, obviously there's some issues with the defense as far as that's concerned, as we talked about now in the backcourt, but will the front court defense make up for that they have with Lopez, with Antetokounmpo? Is that going to be an issue enough for them to go ahead and be able to still make it out on top in the East?
Oh, absolutely. This team has a 2-year window to win championships at least. You have Dame, you have Giannis, Portis, Brook Lopez, and Middleton as your 5. I know depth is important, but all they got to do is coast during the regular season, get a top 3, which I don't see that being a problem. Top 3 seed, and then they're going to roll everyone in the playoffs if there isn't any major injuries to anybody. This is a very, very well put team. Congratulations to Milwaukee. The only problem is for Laker fans, our little Giannis dream might have just went away. So
might have.
Well, I mean, the Lakers can always seem to find that player anyway, so I wouldn't worry.
So let me ask you this, though, Joe, coming back at you with his contract, as we talked about on Sunday, which our audience pointed out as far as it's concerned, Damian Lillard's contract is going to be of concern if you don't win in the next 1 to 2 years, because as everybody gets older on that team around Giannis, they also get more expensive.
Well, Damian Lillard's game is not taxing. He's almost identical in how Steph Curry plays. He might even be even better down the road because he doesn't play as much defense as Steph Curry.
But he also has gotten injured quite a bit. As
yes,
Eli also
yes. But I strongly believe when you're in a position to start winning, your injuries start to sort of go away a little bit. I guarantee you those injuries are not going to be as prevalent in Milwaukee now as they were in Portland. Like, let's say Portland is on the path of going 40-42, and Damian Lillard has a hamstring nagging him 5 games before the season ends, and they're not going to make the playoffs. He's more apt to say, look, I'm just sitting the rest of the year, right? Because it doesn't matter. Yes. But if he's in Milwaukee and they're competing for a championship, those ailments will be a little bit more tolerable mentally for him, especially now where this is really the first time in his career. I know LaMarcus Aldridge was like his second guy, but I feel like that was so long ago. He's been pretty much playing by himself for the last 7 years. So now he has an assortment of help, and one of them is a 2-time MVP in his prime. This team is going to be a force. It will be. If you don't want to believe that, then I suggest you watch Milwaukee play this year, because they're going to be a problem. Just like any other team, injuries can obviously play a factor in this. I don't see there being a chemistry issue. It doesn't seem like Dame Lillard is the kind of guy that ruins locker rooms. I've never heard anything like that. Giannis is a down-to-earth type. Never heard anything bad with Bobby Portis. Obviously, Brook Lopez is great. And then, of course, Chris Middleton. I don't even know what his voice sounds like, let alone hearing anything about what he does. So this trade is a massive win for Milwaukee. They win this trade. But I believe the other teams might have gotten a little bit of some good stuff there too. I know Nurkic is not going to be your, Dwight Howard type, but I think getting rid of Ayton was more a psychological issue than a physical one. I think they just needed to get rid of that guy to just not have to deal with his pettiness, and then Pheonix playing with their pettiness and back and forth. So they got rid of him. They got a guy who, Nurkic, in terms, I know they had more in that package, but Nurkic is the main piece, and he'll do his job. He's a nice role player. You got plenty of stars on that team that are going to do their thing, and we'll see what Frank Vogel does from there. And then Portland quietly turned from, having a 33-year-old super disgruntled superstar. I wouldn't say disgruntled, I'm sorry. Superstar that was ready to leave, to now you got, in my opinion, what could be 1A best player in the draft, and young pieces around them. And you're also going to use one of those trade pieces to possibly get even more assets with Drew Holiday. So this was a great trade for all. This was a good trade for all three teams. Milwaukee wins it, but I was reading it. I'm like, yeah, this sounds like all three GMs did a really good job. And of course, Masai Ujiri did what he does, which is nothing. The only time he's ever done anything is allowed Greg Popovich to send him a player because he didn't want him anywhere near anything in the Western Conference. Without Greg Popovich, I don't even think Masai even has any reputation. Maybe he might not be in Toronto, because I'd say that's the biggest disappointment. Miami was always a no chance. They were not.
Masai really made his name off Carmelo Anthony's ignorance and the New York Knicks' stupidity. Carmelo Anthony was ready to be a free agent, just signed with the Knicks outright, and the Knicks had a great team surrounding him, but they gutted it for Melo, and that's how Masai made his bones. And he's been breaking balls ever since, as we know. He's got to win the trade. It's not enough. It's not enough to get the best player. He's got to win the trade. So he was never going to be a part of this. I mentioned that in the email. I think it was all smoke screen. And we'll see what happens with that pick. But the chickens are going to come home to roost for the Bucks, like it did with the Lakers back when we won our championships, and what's happening to the Clippers now because of the salary cap and other teams. But when that pick comes due for the Bucks, Giannis will be 34 and Dame will be 38, and there's no telling, Gerald, whether or not Dame Lillard will still be in the NBA at age 38. So, go ahead.
I was going to say, no, finish up, my friend, because then I'll put on Jamie right after. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah. Before, so from that perspective, I still think they're the second best team in the East. I thought they were the second best team in the East before the trade, and I think they're the second best team after the trade.
Once again, it is the Lakers Fast Break. It is the Magic Man, Sean Grice, Joe Soro, and me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much for listening. It is the Damian Lillard trade that sends him to Milwaukee in a 3-team trade, but also here today, good man indeed. You got to go ahead and check them out today at Lakerholics.com, along with so many of the great things that they do at Lakerholics.com, plus all the great conversations and more with Laker Tom and everybody there at Lakerholics.com. It is Mr. Five Things himself. It is Jamie Sweet. Jamie, your initial thoughts on the trade? Again, I see, unlike Joe, I don't see a win on all sides. I will go ahead and thanks so much again to Darren. I'm going to give you a big shout out here in a second. We'll make sure we answer that question for you after Jamie. I will make sure I post it on the screen because we truly appreciate your generosity in the super chat. But I don't think Pheonix came out of this very well, out of this trade. I still am at a loss why they gave up Ayton for just a really smaller amount of pieces on it. So I'm really not, if I was in Pheonix, I'd be kind of miffed. But your thoughts on the trade, my friend?
I mean, I think that DeAndre was always going to be an issue. They lowballed him. They wanted to lowball him. They wanted to underpay him. The only reason they paid him as much as they did is because of Indiana. That relationship was always attached to a fuse and a bomb, and that fuse just kept getting shorter and shorter. And he's going to be the Embiid. I mean, he's not as talented as Embiid, but he's going to be the Embiid of Portland. He's going to suck defenses in. He's going to play around the rim. He'll give, the young guys a polished, play finisher around the basket, and he'll get minutes. He'll get minutes, and he was not going to play more than 20, 25 minutes a game in Phoenix, because they're going to try to be Warriors 2.0. They're going to try to get away with 5 minutes at the end of games with Durant at center. They're going to go, and if that's the case, there's no, what are you paying Ayton for? You just got out of Ayton's contract. I think Nurkic, right? Nurkic or Jurkic? I can never remember. Nurkic. Thank you. Nurkic's deal is up after this season, I think. And so they're going to be able to free up cap space that they want to use to keep these shooters together 2 seasons. I thought there was an option. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's not a team option or something, or maybe the last year isn't as guaranteed. I thought there was something beneficial in the final year of the season of his deal, but maybe I'm wrong.
You're talking about Nurkic?
Yeah, but anyway.
No, he's got 3 solid. He's a free agent in 2026.
Oh, that makes less sense than to me. I thought
I was gonna say I was listening to a pod earlier. He's got 3 more years on that deal. So
yeah, they're all in the teens though.
He's a professional. He's not going to whine like Ayton did. He's not going to, Ayton had the whole thing blow up with Monty Williams in the playoffs. All of that gets to go away now. All of that goes away, and they have a fresh start at the 5, and they have a guy who's just going to be happy to be winning games again from a team that wasn't winning. That as it was constructed, it just wasn't winning. It just wasn't working. Dame couldn't lift him enough. Jeremy Grant couldn't do whatever Jeremy Grant does enough. Nurkic couldn't do whatever. It just wasn't working. And Scoot Henderson coming into that mix wasn't going to change that no matter what the GM thought. I got to say kudos to that guy, John something or other, Cronin, right? Joe Cronin. Joe Cronin. Kudos to that guy for holding his cards close to his vest, getting probably the best deal you're going to get. You've got some nice role players and a possible superstar center. Very least, I would say an upgrade over Nurkic. Nurkic is solid. He's a double-double machine. He's going to get you rebounds. He's going to find his way into 10, 15 points a game. But he's never going to pull anybody towards him. They're going to put a smaller guy on him, and that's going to work okay in Phoenix. It wasn't never going to work that way with Dame, and nobody's leaving. Dame's got the LeBron problem. Nobody's leaving a bad player to leave him open. He's facing a guy no matter what. And so that's the only thing that I see as the win for Milwaukee in this, because Milwaukee got older. Milwaukee got measurably worse on defense. That's going to be a problem, especially if Middleton can't recapture Middleton pre-knee injury, which I don't know that he can, given his age. So, this was a win this year move for Milwaukee, because I can easily see them, if they don't win, everybody asking out. Everybody who makes more than $30 million saying, move us, ship us, rebuild. Maybe not Middleton, because I feel like, he's got a kernel of loyalty, and they kind of really gave him his shot. You could argue the same with Giannis, though. But if they have another first, second round flame out, I wouldn't be surprised if Dame asks out. Honestly, I wouldn't be too surprised if Dame asks out before for the trading deadline, which, he didn't want to go to Milwaukee. That's sort of the elephant in the room that everybody who I've heard talking about this seems to want to not talk about. But he didn't want to go there. So if they're not winning, and he's like sacrificing shots or feels like it's just not the right situation for him, I same thing. So it was a ballsy move by the Bucks, because this is a win this year move. And if they win this year, then yeah, you run it back, you hope for the best, but Brook Lopez turned in a great year on his just post back surgery contract year. Everybody's got to play at least as well as they played last season, if not a step better on defense. I don't know that that's the kind of coach Adrian Griffin is. This is his first year as a coach, rookie head coach with a lot of veteran presences, a guy who makes a ton of money for a long time, who doesn't necessarily want to be there. So that's going to be a challenging situation up and down the roster across the board for that entire organization. And it was all designed to make one player happy. And you have to imagine this had input from Giannis. If it comes out that it didn't, if it comes out in a day or two or on media day or whatever next week that Giannis was blindsided and is like, oh, that was the guy I want to, that's going to be a big problem. That's going to be a big problem for a rookie head coach to just say, like, hey, guys, can't we all get along? You're not going to be able to Rodney King this one. So it's a curious, but it confirms what I always say about the NBA. We can always BS back and forth about this trade and that trade, and it's always the trade you don't see that gets made, almost always. And to that, Laker Tom is already throwing up trades over on Lakerholics.com for the Lakers to acquire Holiday. Unfortunately, we can't make most of those deals till after December 15th. Any of them, really. So I kind of expect Portland to flip Holiday, mainly because they have a logjam at guard. You would imagine that they would want Holiday's minutes to go to Scoot, to go to Simmons, unless they're going to go with the legendary Darvin Ham 3-guard lineup. Which, if that's the case, that lineup will score a lot, and they might be able to run some teams out of the building who just want to kind of play it easy in the regular season. OKC, Memphis, how Memphis, played a couple seasons back. So, I thought that Portland did as good a job moving on from a disgruntled superstar as you can do, and that they got complementary players now. They might not have gotten the hollow draft picks that Utah got for Gobert, but that was always one of the most absurd trades anyone had ever seen anyways, and there was no way that was going to be replicated forever into the future. Like, I'll never know what possessed Minnesota to make that deal, other than that they're completely incompetent at running a basketball team. I agree with Sean. I have the Bucks at like the second, third best team in the East. I still think Miami's better. Miami's about to run it back minus 2 role players. And yeah, Gabe and Strus showed up big in the playoffs, but they weren't instrumental in getting them to the playoffs. Miami had a solid record all season long, plays hard. They still got Bam. They still got Jimmy. They have a reinvigorated, a freshly minted Tyler Hero, who you would imagine doesn't much care one way or the other where he plays based on at this point, as long as he gets to shoot a lot and make more money. And Spo's going to run a tight ship over there. So I don't see there being a lot of slippage from Miami. And honestly, I didn't see Dame as being the key to unlocking Miami. Miami's like the old Spurs team. They just want to keep it under 100. They want to play a dirty, gritty game of basketball every night, and they're happy fighting in the mud. Dame's not a fighting in the mud type of guy. So
they're never going to win a championship. They can get away with it in the Eastern Conference, but they needed Dame.
I
would agree with that. I would agree in the playoffs that you need a guy who can shoot lights out and has not a shred of doubt in his ability or shot. And that on the Heat, unfortunately, that guy is Jimmy Butler, who isn't the best pure scorer in the game, but he gets by on grit a lot of the time, which does have a shelf life. I don't know. I thought that I still expect to see Miami in the thick of it. I think Boston's still the team to beat in the East. Unfortunately, I don't like saying that, just on personal reasons.
But
But
can we get to I just want to get to a question here real quick from
sure.
Darren, who's again put that truly appreciate him donating to us as far as the super chat is concerned. He said, Gerald and Cruz, should we try to get Drew Holiday in December if he's available? If he's still available, that's the question, guys. I put out to you. That's the thing. He will probably most likely be moved before then. The Lakers do not have enough assets now to go ahead and get him, but I'll field the question here back to Jamie real quick to let you finish up. Is Drew Holiday an individual that you want to go ahead and see after if he's still on Portland, which I'm guessing he probably won't be?
I guess no, I doubt it. I would actually expect some teams. I mean, I kind of expect him to next be moved or be part of a multi-team James Harden deal. That maybe he ends up in Philly, maybe he ends up somewhere where that just to make the money work. Portland gets a draft pick or two, or even just some second rounders for their trouble. I really don't expect Drew Holiday to start the season as a Blazer. I think that's an extreme long shot. Having said that, I would love for him to be a Laker. He's a perfect point guard for the AD LeBron tandem because he plays off ball well, because he rebounds well, because he plays good defense. He's not going to be your go-to scorer. We don't need him to be. We got plenty of guys who can put the ball in the bucket. That would be my quick take on that one.
Joe, what are your thoughts now with, again, what you're seeing from this trade? Do you think that the Lakers, first of all, again, I do not think Drew Holiday will still be a member of the Portland Trailblazers come December or January when the Lakers finally get enough assets to go ahead and make it a trade. But let's just say, for laugh's sakes, that he is going to be available at that point in time. Is he somebody that the Lakers should pursue at that point in time when they have enough trade assets available?
No.
Why? Because he plays better backcourt defense than anybody in the NBA.
I'm saying no because it's counterproductive at that point. You'd have to have D'Angelo and Rui not playing well the first 2 months of the year or a month and a half. And then at that point, are you still winning with those guys struggling? And will Portland want those guys for Drew Holiday? Why? They're going to want assets. They're going to want some kind of a first-round pick. And for me, there isn't a first-round pick worth giving it to Drew Holiday. I don't see him being that much of an impact between D'Lo and Rui, let's say. And the reason why I use those two as the trade pieces is because that's really the only two that make sense and that contracts would match. There's this constant greener on the other side mentality that keeps festering this offseason. It's getting tiresome. It's a lot of the reasons why I want the season to start. Stop trying to trade every goddamn day. This is what got us in trouble before. Are you guys brain dead? When I say you guys, I'm talking about the people out there talking about it. Okay? At what point are you going to learn your damn lesson? Stop trading every time somebody takes a dump next door. I mean, seriously, like it's like I called you today to talk about, wow, Dame went to Milwaukee. That was my first thought because now I'm worried that we're not going to get Giannis. And then it turned into this, are we going to get Drew Holiday now? What? What the hell does that have to do with the trade?
Like, no, it was just a question that somebody's asking. Is something if he were to be available?
A question. It became like a tidal wave, and that is the society of what have you done for me in the last 44/10 of a second culture. Like everything's about can we go trade for this? Like where's the common sense in that? Where's the common sense in trading? And especially a guy who struggled in that first round against Miami, which I find kind of comical that are you going to tell me now that Miami's going to beat Milwaukee with the same talent? I know Tyler Hero didn't play. Maybe that might help. I don't know. But, I mean, I just can't wrap my head around how Milwaukee didn't just come up. They just added a first ballot Hall of Famer that can still ball next to a two-time MVP who was in his prime, and a bunch of guys around him that can play and have won championships and aren't locker room cancers. So how are you going to convince me that this team didn't improve? And Brett, I'm more worried about the Lakers meeting Milwaukee now in the finals, should the Lakers make it to the finals, because that's going to be a team to deal with. Guys, someone who can shoot from 30 feet like he's making a layup, those guys are problems in those games.
Sean, do you feel the same way, or your thoughts? Just let's say.
Let's go trade everybody. Let's go.
I'm just putting it out there. Just say, because Sean and I had this conversation beforehand. We're going to be honest and upfront with everybody out there. We just pondered it around. Would you be interested in that type of package, doing a combo? Because that's what it would take with what is owed out there, is essentially a Drew for Rui and D'Lo package on that. Would you be even contemplating that if it should come to pass during December, January?
No.
Okay.
However, I did tell Gerald that if it was a choice between D'Lo and Drew Holiday, of course you take Drew Holiday. But that's how Gerald framed the question. But
Darren framed a question, and we truly appreciate it.
Sean just said something that makes sense about what we're talking about. They could have waited. The Knicks could have waited for Carmelo to be a free agent. They didn't. They gutted their team because they wanted the flash. They wanted the trade. They wanted the BS that people are infatuated.
James Dolan wanted to win the headlines again.
Right. He wanted to win the headlines. It became a selfish, stupid decision, which is what most people do. They want the notoriety. They want the, I made this, right? Anyone who's got a half a brain, not even a full brain, an actual half a brain, should know that at the end of the day, especially in sports, it's about winning it all when you have a chance at doing it. And if you feel like you want to be Jerry Jones to the point where, hey, how come he got all the credit? I'm the owner. He's the guy that coach. He's a guy that does that. You're just a guy that put together some business and we're able to buy a company.
And you've always said that, Joe, and it's 28 years of karma
guys, it's not rockets. Exactly. It's not rock. James Dolan. I mean, there was no better freaking example that you could have used except in the Knicks, right? Like, no better. Masai
He's got a nice spear here in Las Vegas.
I was going after Masai. And Masai has a little bit of a fault there, too, because he's always thinking, I have to win the thing, right? So Danny Ainge has that sickness, too. The problem with Danny Ainge and Masai is they're always going to be able to live off their 2019 title and 2008 title, right? But the thing is, when you look at the heart of those two titles, Kevin McHale handed Danny Ainge Kevin Garnett. Greg Popovich handed Masai to Toronto to send him away as far as they could have sent him from the Western Conference. It had if Pippi Longstocking was the GM of Toronto, he still would have sent Kawhi to Toronto. So now, where are we at? We're talking about a problem now in Milwaukee. We're talking about a problem now, at least on paper, right? I'm more worried about that than worrying about trading every goddamn player we have in the next 3 weeks now. I'm just kind of putting that on the table.
Once again, it is the Lakers fast break. Damian Lillard did get traded to Milwaukee. Among the pieces that get sent over to Portland in exchange are DeAndre Ayton and Drew Holiday, 3 draft picks, 2 swaps actually, and 1 first rounder, all 28, 29, and 30 related. Plus also as well, Pheonix gets Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, and some other spare pieces as well.
And Gerald, let's not bury the headline here. Great, okay. We have to deal with Grayson Allen.
Unless he gets traded.
That 6'4", puss bag who's rather break somebody's. Gerald, he purposely tried to injure Alex Caruso.
Okay.
Do you remember that play?
I do, but he's got a laundry list of people who he's tried to injure.
He does. But if you remember that play, he purposefully, like, here's the thing, Gerald.
If he stays on Pheonix,
guys like Bruce Brown and Zaza Pachulia were dirty players, all right? But I never held it against them, and here's why. Because they weren't dirty guys. They were coached up to be dirty. Grayson Allen is a little runt, Gerald. He has been since his time at Duke. No, I'm serious.
Tell us how you really feel.
Gerald, with the military background that Mike Krzyzewski has, he went to Gerald. He's a graduate of West Point. I still don't understand how a little shit like that ended up on his campus.
4603. I got it. Okay.
And he's a little puss bag to me. He's got a lot of flaws defensively, and the only reason he makes a living in the NBA is because he's a friggin' goon. At least Dylan Brooks has a semblance of talent, and he's a really good defender. Grayson Allen is none of those things, and I'm tired of seeing him in the NBA. And you know what? If Pheonix knows what's good for them, they will trade him. But I don't think they will, Gerald, because Pheonix does what they normally do. They make a good move, and then they decide, we're going to circle the drain.
Well, I don't love the Nurkic deal for them at all. And Grayson Allen, it is what it is. Dirty player, can shoot 39% from three. Doesn't do much else for you. Again, we saw he has the biggest embarrassment of all in the playoffs of last year. We saw him as he, couldn't even call the timeout, and we saw what happened there. So, karma came back to him. But I really think when it comes to this trade, Joe, when it comes to this trade, and then you see what's going on with the parameters of it, I really think Portland got, for sending out what is arguably their all-time greatest player, Joe. I really think they got a really, really nice haul. Not a perfect or great haul, but I think for what was asked under this time frame, that they did want to go ahead and make sure they didn't have him in camp to go ahead and intrude on the young guards, including Scoot Henderson, that they have there already. I really think they went out and got something better than the Miami trade. I like it better than the Miami trade.
For sure. Yeah. And
some people are saying no, but I am.
No, Miami.
So go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
Miami had no chance in this trade, and it became very clear probably about a month ago, really, because once you started not hearing enough compromise in the trades, and what I mean by compromise is what are you going to do to adjust to what you originally wanted to give. They said no. They don't want Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and a couple first round picks. They don't want that, which I wouldn't have taken that either, because I don't think those guys are worth those contracts, right? And they're already planning on trading Drew because of that kind of same reason. And I think it's a little easier to trade Drew Holiday because he's only got, another year on his contract. And he's got a bigger number too. So, and there's going to be a team out there that's going to want him. Matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they send them to Miami. They actually could use him in Miami. Don't be surprised if they do that trade. Yeah. Which would be kind of funny if they ended up getting, let's say, a Duncan Robinson or a Tyler Hero for Drew Holiday. I think that would be poetic if that happened. But at the end of the day, the Toronto thing had some legs. But of course, a little bit of me also said Masai doesn't want to at least be par with these guys. So is that really going to happen? Well, you got that answer today. When I heard Milwaukee was interested, my first thought was, is Milwaukee really going to be able to afford all this?
For now.
You're talking about those guys. Remember I told you guys with Giannis, I didn't understand his, we have to compete. I'm like, Milwaukee, which is a very small market, and they don't have the kind of advertising money in New York and LA. Are they going to be able to deal with the first and second aprons once they start creeping up there?
Because you've got right now you have Damian Lillard on the back end of that contract, Sean and Joe. Yeah, that one is going to, what you talked about 65. I think you talked about $65 million on the last year of his contract. And then if you're fortunate enough to sign Antetokounmpo to an extension, you're talking about several years in the 50, 60, and possibly reaching into the $70 million range there.
What Milwaukee's going to need to do, I mean, they have some outs. It's actually not a bad setup. I think Bobby Portis is only making like $12 million. That's not a hard contract to move if you had to. And then you have one more year left after this year with Brook Lopez. So they're actually not in a bad position should they need to shave off some salary. What they will need to do is they're going to need to hit some jackpots in the draft late in the first, which, that's a story for another time. But I believe the Bucks just won in this trade a lot, and they're going to be a force. And then as far as what Miami is going to end up doing, and Toronto, I'm telling you, Masai and Danny Ainge they're twins. You're not going to see anything other than people leaving or them not making the deal that matters. That's where what Toronto's future is. Miami, the Godfather is there. There's a culture there. They'll win, but it's not an accident that every time they get to the finals, they get their asses whooped. Even though they played their asses off in 2020, this last finals, they were dead. Like, they couldn't even barely play. They should have been swept, just like you had predicted. They should have. They gutted it out enough to win one game, but they should have been swept because they were pretty much spent. But in 2020, they went into God mode as long as they could, but they still weren't. It wasn't like you were really worried. You could just see it. You could see when the Lakers were on, they couldn't lose, and then when they did sneak out a couple wins, in the end, Game 6, they ran out of gas, and the Lakers ran them out of the gym.
Look, a small part of us always roots for the Godfather. Always will, unless they play us. But no, Gerald, it's true. It's true. Look, despite the fact that they lost in 5, you know something? They were up 3-0 on the Boston Celtics. They were up 3-0 on the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. And the Boston Celtics have to live with the fact that they couldn't come back from 0-3. And do you think those cheese chowder heads would have went to town on that, potentially going to a finals? I mean, Jokic would have ripped out their hearts. But the fact remains is that those chowder heads would have tried to live off that finals appearance again. But the fact is that the last 1, 2, they're down for the count. And you know what? I'm not as high on the Heat as Jamie is. It's hard to know where that compass is right now, Gerald, because there are a few outstanding issues in the NBA that need to be resolved. They kept their picks, and somebody like Karl Anthony Towns is still out there. And somebody is disgruntled about every other 6 months in the NBA, Gerald. I agree with Joe. I think the Heat will be fine. I don't see them repeating as a finals team unless unless 2 big seismic moves are made by them. They'd have to do 2, not 1. So I don't see that happening. That's usually not their MO either. Overall, the Bucks. I agree with Joe. Overall, the Bucks won this trade. I'd give the Bucks an A. I'd give the Suns and Blazers both C's that could turn into B's.
I disagree with you on the Blazers. I really disagree with you on Blazers. I really think that they are the winners in this trade because I think that if the Bucks don't win short term, I think it's going to look better and better for Portland just because you could still move Ayton and get some assets there. You could move Drew Holiday and get some real assets there. So there's a lot more that you can get to build your team. Plus the fact that you've got, again, if you want, you could go ahead. You still got those 3 number 1 picks. You've got a 28, 29, 30, One is unprotected, full number one. The other
Gerald,
two are unprotected swaps. The
right,
29,
right.
28,
What
29, I believe.
Right. And what it also symbolizes is that they're betting on Scoot Henderson and Shaden Sharp at this point.
That's a pretty safe. That's a pretty good bet. Scoot again. I think will do
Well,
pretty good in this league.
we'll see about Shaden Sharp as well, but they're basically anticipating being a contender in 2028 and potentially having a juicy pick, Gerald.
If you have Scoot, if Scoot is John Morant with a brain, ooh, you're not gonna feel too bad for too long.
We'll see. We'll see how that works out. Again, I'm really hot on Scoot. I've seen him in person. I really think he'll do well, but that's just me. Again, I could be wrong on that. You'll see. As far as talent evaluation and draft evaluation, it's always touch and go on that. But Alice brings a good point before we head on out. What superstar is coming to the Lakers in 2 years now that the Greek Freak isn't? It looks
Never
more and more
say
like
never.
he'll sign. Yeah, never say never on the.
never.
Yeah, never say never on Antetokounmpo yet. We'll see if that does implode.
It's never, guys.
But
It's over.
yeah.
He's not coming.
So who is the new fascination for Lakers
No
fans?
one. There was only one small. There was one small gap somewhere there, but that's not going to happen either because he's going to sign the supermax. That's Jason Tatum.
Okay.
It's
so
over.
No Luka.
Giannis was the guy. Giannis put the feeler out there this summer, and that got me like, ooh. If they don't get this thing, if they don't get this ship right, then maybe he might test the waters a little bit in 2 years. But now, I don't think it's going to happen. Now I think he's got the team he needs.
So does this put definitively for the Pheonix Suns? Let's get back to them as far as in relation to the Lakers before we head on out. And let me ask you this: when it comes to the Lakers, Sean, does it make Phoenix a just an existential favorite above Denver now, above the Lakers, above anybody else in the West? I don't think it does. Again, I think they take a step back in the trade unless Yusuf Nurkic, does not look like the player he does in the past 2 seasons.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Nurkic Jamie's watched in the past couple of years, but the one I saw will not help the Suns ascend in the Western Conference.
I know we've always talked about, man, if we only had bubble AD back, man, if we only had bubble AD. What about in Portland where they've been asking for years? If only we had bubble Nurkic back.
Yeah, that's when the worm turned, Gerald. That compound fracture and then the bubble.
Yeah. I think Portland's saying a lot more than that. How about God? Why did you destroy Bill Walton's feet? Why did you kill Brandon Roy's potential? Why did you end Greg Oden before he could start?
Sam Bowie.
Why didn't we get Arvydas Sabonis in the early 90s? I mean, Portland, geez. Portland
Hey, they're the ones who gave up on Jermaine O'Neal, not the other way around.
Okay, I get it.
They gave almost a Hall of Famer away because they thought that their ex-cons, Joe, would take him to the top. No, I love Bonzi Wells as a basketball player, but as a person, not so much.
I think Portland definitely has gotten a little bit of a curse on
Look,
them.
they've gotten the short end of the stick historically. There's no doubt about it. But they do have the one banner.
And they have less targets now too, by the way.
So do you think they got definitively better, Sean, or worse with today's trade in Phoenix?
I think they got given the choices.
Because they got your favorite player in the league along with it.
Given the
and
choices.
Nasir Little. And Keon Johnson.
That's a hard question to answer because
that's what our Lakers fans want to know.
Yeah, well, they didn't get definitively better. That's for sure.
I don't think they did.
Not at all. I don't think they got definitively worse, though.
Okay. Because he does provide certain things. A healthy Nurkic, passing,
this is like
rebounding.
This is like when you're traveling and you got a half a tank of gas and you've got to decide, Gerald, because at 60 miles, there's nothing. So you got to decide whether you want to fill up or take a chance. Well, they're taking a chance with Nurkic. They're taking a chance because they're, like you said it earlier, and it makes a lot of sense. There's another move to be made. They're over the limit for roster spots, so they're obviously going to waive Keon Johnson. They're probably going to waive Ish Wainwright, but they still got to make a couple moves, Gerald. I think they need another big, like they really do at this point, because if Pheonix Suns fans are relying on Bol to help them out this year, watch like the last 2 months of our pods last year before the playoffs started between me, Joe, and Gerald talking about Mo Bamba, because that's what you're going to get with Bol.
Mo Bamba was a benefit in the end. We got rid of cackle face Patrick Beverly.
I knew you were going to say that. Bol in theory is better than Bol in practice. Yes, I did.
You didn't know I was going to say that.
Yeah, I did. Absolutely, I did.
I knew you were going to wear a Raiders of the Ark shirt today.
They're great 2K players, right? Bol and Mo Bamba.
I'm glad you did.
Mo Bamba served a public service in getting rid of an anus pimple off the team.
Patrick Beverly was a very
is that descriptive enough?
Very sour.
Yes.
Oh, and Gerald,
I just like how Sean ignored it. It made it funnier, actually.
Oh, Gerald, I'd like to also point out a bit of peripheral NBA news.
Sure.
Tony Allen, Boston Celtic, Memphis Grizzly fame, is avoiding jail time for the dental scam that he was a part of, Gerald, with his other cohorts. He's not going to do federal time like Terrence Williams, Keon Dooling. So just wanted to point that out. And as you stated, Gerald, that was probably one of the dumbest insurance scams I've ever seen in my life.
Who did it? Yeah, when you did that, when you're signing on as far as on the dotted line on that, who do you think you're kidding? You don't think you're going to get caught? But yeah, I digress. Just crazy, absolutely crazy indeed. But before we head on out, guys, final thoughts on the trade. I know in less than an hour, Sean, you go back on the air talking to Darren Nunez. Hopefully, Joe will be with them. As far as talking the Sacramento Kings, and then I'll be on the Pop Culture Cosmos, hopefully with these guys as well, along with Chris Sardieri, Inside Sports Fantasy Football. But guys, any last thoughts on the Damian Lillard trade? We've had a nice crowd tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Please like and subscribe to get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air. Can we get to 30 likes, please? We've had as many as 40 people in the chat. Can we get 30 likes, please, before we head on out? Guys, your thoughts on the Damian Lillard trade? I think it was great for Milwaukee, great for Portland. Phoenix, I'm still kind of have to wait and see on that one. Let's just put it that.
Yeah, I think the Bucks, they get an A. I give a solid C to the Pheonix Suns because that's like depth moves, and I don't really see this one panning out for them. It's more of flotsam jetsam to me, Gerald. And Portland, I give them a C plus as well. That could turn into definitely a B. I think that's a move that obviously could springboard and tentacle into other asset acquiring as well, Gerald. That's true. They got Holiday. They could acquire assets with that. However, it'd be a separate move than this one in particular. In this one, Cronin only gets one pick, 2 swaps. So I thought he could have done a little bit better with the picks.
Joe, any last thoughts, my friend, before we head on out?
Yeah, the league just got a little bit, or the title run got a little bit harder today. When you win a championship, you got to worry about the East. It seems like, or the other conference, I should say, because I think we get lost in this. Well, Denver and Phoenix is the main problem. Sure, because you play those guys 4 times a year, likely. And then obviously you got to deal with them in the playoffs should you run into them. But this is a problem for championship 18 as well. If they go into the East and start really, really balling, and Damian Lillard is hitting 30-footers left and right with Giannis doing his thing, that's going to be Milwaukee's going to be a problem. This is a better, on paper, this is a better team than the 2021 team.
Okay, fair enough. Right there, again, with Damian Lillard guiding the way, could it lead the Milwaukee Bucks to an NBA Finals and a chance to go ahead and be on top in the Eastern Conference? We'll wait and see. But again, if you didn't get the news in detail, Damian Lillard is on his way to the Milwaukee Bucks as part of a 3-team trade. Portland will receive Drew Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, Toumani Camara, Milwaukee's 2029 unprotected first-round draft pick, and unprotected swap rights with Milwaukee in 28 and 30, just to let everybody know from there. The Suns will receive Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson. And we will be touching back on this in the coming days. Go ahead and please check us out continuously here at the Lakers Fast Break. We've got more great team previews, including one on the way in a very short period of time as Magic Man interviews Brendan Nunez, who's going to be talking about the Sacramento Kings and their outlook. And then, of course, we're going to be back on again tomorrow, talking the latest info. We've got 2 more team previews. Plus, who knows? We might have to come on for another emergency pod as well, guys. So you never know. We're trying to go ahead and be upfront with everything that we can. Joe, myself, and Sean truly appreciate everyone out there. The great comments in our chat. The best Lakers chat room that's out there is the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate the super chat from Darren. Big shout out to one of our best and most appreciated Lakers fans out there from the Lakers Fast Break. But for Joe Sorrell, Magic Man Sean Grice, and me, Gerald Glassford, thanks so much for listening. Truly appreciate it. We'll see you in a little bit with Darren Nunez. And of course, we'll see you every day leading into training camp right here on the Lakers Fast Break podcast.
Where's that music? Dan, 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 dan.